Okay, here we go. It is a beautiful day here in Central Virginia, and we have a great show coming to you. I'm Mary Grace. This is Mary Grace TV. And you probably noticed that my guest today, Dr. Troy Spurill, is in a different location from when he normally comes on our show. That's because he is coming to you live from the media room at the Reawaken Tour at Clay Clark's Thrive Time Reawaken America tour. I've been there before. You guys have seen me speaking there, and Dr. Troy is there on the ground having some amazing experiences, and he's taking a little bit of time out of his morning to come to us live so that we can give you a quick Q&A. So this is going to be like sort of like the fast and furious medical Q&A for today, but we wanted to touch base with everybody because it's been a while. Welcome back to the show. Great to see you.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So there's something that's really been on my mind, and I want to just cut to the chase on this. I don't know if you're on Twitter very much, but there's been a little bit of a brouhaha this week because Matt Walsh, who is pretty well known for his work in the movement with men and women, and he has had a film called What is a Woman. He just tweeted out and said, you know what? It's really not hard to lose weight. All you have to do is eat less and move more. And it was a very sort of condescending attitude that he conveyed, and it has just created a storm.
Yeah,
And Dr. Ken Berry, one of the leading, if not the leading carnivore doctor, he's very active on YouTube. Most people have heard his name. He has invited Matt Walsh to debate with him and or to have a conversation and just to say, let's talk about this. Because if this was the case, then everything that the diet industry has been telling us for the past 30 years would work and we wouldn't have a nationwide obesity epidemic.
yeah,
So, without really getting into the character of either of those two men, I do want to speak to this because this is a big deal.
yeah.
And we're in trouble as a nation, as a society, as the whole Western world, really. So let's talk about this. Is it as simple as just eating less and moving more?
No. So
Okay.
there's actually 8 reasons why people gain weight. Eating less and moving more are 2 of the 8. So he's
Oh,
not wrong. So that's one part of it. That will work with a certain percentage of people, but there's 6 other causes and reasons for that. So we can go through a bunch of those right now, just in general. But sometimes there's a hormone component that's also in play, and that'll cause some weight gain. Sometimes there's a blood sugar regulation component that needs to be addressed and fixed. Sometimes there's a stress component, which is the culprit. So the more stress we have, the more we could actually gain weight. If you're living in a state of fear, fight, or flight, your body will store fat. So adrenaline from fight or flight can burn energy, and you actually do pretty well. But long-term stress causes you to make cortisol. Cortisol's job
okay.
is to store fat. So stress can play into it. Environmental toxins can also trigger issues when it comes to weight gain. Food allergies is another one that can become problematic. And then infections, low-grade infections, gut
Oh,
bacteria, dysbiosis, mold sensitivity. So 25% of the population is sensitive to mold. If they have mold in their house or their home, it affects an area of the brain called the hypothalamus, which then affects your hormones and your ability to actually, it affects a hormone called leptin, which again, leptin is released from fat. And so all of that can be summarized up to this. Anything that causes inflammation will lead to fat being
okay.
deposited and weight gain.
So it seems a little more complicated than
Yes.
just eat less. And
Yes.
one thing that I'm hearing too as I do more research into the ketogenic space, which is really higher fat, higher protein, lower carbs, especially lower processed, just
Yeah.
highly processed foods in general, right? And higher um animal fats or really good sourced plant fats like coconut or olive oil, right? As opposed to seed oils. And we've talked a little bit about that on the show. But the point being that, um, there's a lot there's a case to be made, um, for the fact that your body will actually perceive that it's starving when you are
Yeah.
in calorie deprivation, um, and then it's gonna actually hold on to fat, right? And
Correct.
that's because
Yes.
that's a stressor,
Yeah.
okay?
It'll actually start laying the fat down around your organs because
Okay.
it wants to protect the organs. Because if you're starving, then you want to keep the organs going to keep you alive. So the visceral
Mhm,
fat is the hardest fat to get rid of,
mhm,
number one. So when it stores around the organs, it's called visceral fat. It's the hardest fat to get rid of. So that's why, and so is the last fat. And it's the fat that's
mhm.
actually most damaging to our overall health and well being.
Okay.
So that's why calorie restriction doesn't always work with people. And why I'm a huge fan of fasting, but it's got to be done properly. And if you're
Mhm,
in a fight or flight stress scenario where you're already depositing fat around your organs, fasting may or may not work well for you. You have to see how your body responds. So, intermittent fasting is a good place to start. And because we live in an age of abundance of food, but the food may not be nutrient dense, if you eat fake food, processed food has no nutrients, it's the same as fasting. It's
Oh,
worse
that
because
yeah, I
it's
okay.
actually adding toxins.
I was gonna ask that. So just putting food in your face or
Yeah.
food-like substances
Yes.
isn't going to nourish you, right?
Correct.
And so and that's one thing that I think is really critical to let's focus on that for just a minute because it's I don't know about the rest of the world, but Americans are eating a lot of highly processed items that are marketed as food.
Yeah.
And and they're and the consumption of seed oils, which are they're called vegetable oils, but they're made it's industrial waste, right? Soy,
Yes.
canola, safflower, Crisco, Wesson oil, all those things that you've known of as so-called heart healthy are actually anti-nutrient. But so you're saying that if somebody's consistently going to a drive-through or they're buying packaged foods that they can then put in the microwave or throw in the oven and things like that, which is predominantly what you see in the store, that they're just putting in a bunch of calories but your
Yeah.
body thinks you're fasting. I mean, that's crazy. Yeah.
It is
So
because it'll not burn those calories for energy. So those are high calorie, low nutrient, and you want the opposite. You want
mhm,
high nutrient, low calorie, which a lot of vegetables have that as
mhm,
well. But then
mhm,
there's good or bad with that too. So the
mhm.
reality is, we want nutrient dense foods. We want whole
Okay.
foods the way they were intended. And the general rule of thumb is, if God made it, it's good. If man changed it, beware.
Mhm. And when you talk about Whole Foods as well, I mean, it's really it's they say shop the outside of the store, kind of, like the
Yep.
outer
Yep.
perimeter, except the freezer section,
That's right.
because that's at the outside in my grocery store. But, like the deli, sorry, the meat section, the produce section, right, that kinda thing.
Yeah.
So what can somebody do if they are in this place? I mean, because, Americans have embraced, I think, every diet that there is.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's like the biggest selling, book category. It's
Yeah.
the biggest selling self-help category, and yet we have alarmingly increasing rates of obesity in this country.
Yeah.
So what do we do?
So the first thing is just to recognize too. Although I don't trust a lot of the data from the CDC does actually
Mhm.
have a good guideline on obesity. So they
Okay,
actually have a PowerPoint presentation. If you go to the CDC website,
interesting.
they have a PowerPoint presentation on obesity, state by state, and from they started tracking it in the 80s, and in the 1980s, there was only a couple states that had greater than 10% obesity. And then you fast forward to the early 90s, and every state in the nation had at least 10% obesity. And then you fast forward into the early 2000s, and they had new categories of 15%, 20%, and
Mhm.
25% obesity.
Wow.
Fast forward to the teens, 2015, and all of a sudden we are approaching 40 and 50% obesity in Mississippi, Alabama, and Virginia is actually up there as well,
Yeah.
and one of the higher ones. And so they were the three worst states in the nation, and we
Wow.
didn't have one state. Colorado and Minnesota, where I'm from, are usually the two states that are number one and two in obesity as far as the least obese. But now Minnesota is over 20% clinically obese. In
Wow.
the 1980s, there wasn't one state that was that bad. Now the best state is the same as the worst state 20 years ago. So
Right.
that trend is not good. So that's first
Gosh.
and foremost to know that what we've been doing is not working. That's
A
basically the only way to say it.
and I would say, I mean, we're talking that's exponential. This is
It
like
is.
thousands of percentages of increase in obesity. And
Yeah.
one of the things that is kind of alarming is the body positivity movement that is trying to not only to normalize, but to uh, enshrine obesity as a healthy way of living. But can you
Yeah.
talk about some of the complications and implications of even being slightly obese? I mean, there's morbid
Yeah.
obesity, but like you talk about that visceral fat around the organs, but what's really happening when somebody is obese, even if they're told that they should feel good about themselves? I mean, we want people to feel good, but we also want them to have something that motivates them to change for
I
their
love this question. This is
okay.
such a good question because you're exactly right. So I want people who are overweight or obese to really hear this. This is not a shaming thing. This is discernment, because you are exactly right. I don't want you to feel bad about your body. It's not entirely your fault that you're in this state, but I want you to take responsibility at this point for being in that state. This is how we move through it,
Okay.
because obesity and fat equals inflammation. Inflammation is one of the leading causes, if not the leading cause, to all disease. And so, just that one risk factor of being obese makes you at a higher risk for cancer, higher risk for heart disease, higher risk for dementia, higher risk for diabetes, and a lot of other disorders. COVID, one of the main factors for pre existing conditions was, are you clinically obese? When they look at life insurance policies, obesity is one of the main things that they actually will assess. So we want to make sure that you do okay with it, basically.
Yeah.
I
I
can't
mean,
tell
and
if
there's
I've been lost, if my connection was lost. But
You're still here. We had a little lag, but it's fine. And so when it comes
okay.
to this, let's just talk about the implications of this. I mean, we hear heart disease, um, diabetes, hypertension, those kinds of things. But what does it look like to a family, to a lifestyle, to longevity, to just the ability to function day to day? What
Yeah.
happens if these things aren't addressed?
Well, the number one is that it affects your daily routine. So a lot of people we work with, we sit down and say, okay, what are your goals? And they say, I want to lose 40 pounds. I want to lose 50 pounds. I said, yeah, but what is your weight stopping you from doing? And then they start
Okay.
crying and they
Mhm.
say, I can't run with my kids. I want to be able to bend over and pick up my grandkids. This is an emotional thing. People are losing out in things in life, experiences in life, bonding moments in life because of their weight and their obesity. A lot of them are.
Mhm.
So it's a very, very much a brain heart thing. It's so emotional because people are sad because they're missing out. So a lot of times they want to lose the weight. Yes, it's not even to look better. Some of them say that's just like a benefit by the time they're done. But I just did with one of my patients. I just released it on our web page this last week. His goal is to lose 25 pounds. He ended up losing 45 pounds. And I asked him, what's the benefit? What's the takeaway here? And for him, he's 70 years old and he started golfing again. He said, I have joy back in my life. I get to be with my friends doing something I enjoyed my entire life that I thought I had to give up. All of a sudden my knees work better and I can walk the golf course now. All of a sudden I have energy. I want to get up in the day and start moving and doing the things I used to do. And this may not sound like a big deal to a lot of your listeners, but he said he had one of his kids who was busy, and he went and mowed their grass with a push mower. And he's at 70 years old, and he was ecstatic that he could do that
Hmm.
for his family.
Yeah.
And so those are the little things. We have so many people with good hearts, with good intentions, and they're just compromised. And so this is why it's such a big deal. It goes so far beyond just the weight loss. It's our impact on our community, on our family. And when people start to get their value back, their identity back, they start to feel more like themselves, you can just see God lifting them up, and they're becoming that person
Mm.
that they're proud of, that they want to be, and they're pouring back into their family and loved ones instead of always receiving or just saying I can't.
That's so powerful. I mean, because the thing about one of the things that I do here at Mary Grace TV, I really believe that I have a calling to help people walk into their destiny and to give them the
Yes.
tools to do that. And, I take it seriously. That's why I have people like you on the show, because if we aren't a healthy society, then we cannot do the things that you just described. We can't so into our communities and our families because we are always on the receiving end of the care. And this is really critical, and I want people to understand this. There are solutions, but as Dr. Troy says, we have to be willing to face the consequences of where we are, and then also take responsibility. This is a big thing, and I think with the rise of, these quick fix offerings, such as some of the weight loss drugs, it feels to me like that is just another Band-Aid on a systemic, deeply metabolic issue. And so I wanted to ask you, what do you do? What is your approach if somebody were to call your clinic, and this, let's say this is their main thing. They've been dealing with this for years, yo-yo dieting up and down. Women could never take the weight off after they gave birth or after menopause. So what's going to happen if they call you guys? What approach are you going to do? Are you going to slap them with some medication and say, "Here, go do this"? Are you gonna give them a worksheet from the American Diabetes Association?
Yeah, no.
I know you're not, but what's different? What are they gonna how is it gonna be different from all the other times if they call Synapse and set up a consultation with you?
Well, that's a good question. We basically the six things, or it's actually eight if you take in smaller portions in movement. The eight things that cause weight gain, we assess all eight. So we'll look at hormones, we'll look at diet, lifestyle, we'll look at hidden sleep disorders. Hidden sleep disorders is one of the main causes for weight gain because it's
Okay.
just another form, a different form of stress. So these are the different things that we look at, and we're very, very big on education. So we have programs that are done virtually for
Mhm.
6 months, where we'll walk people through week by week what it is, all the different things that can affect you, and we just see what's relevant to your body. The number one thing is to learn about what you're actually being exposed to and what's
Mhm.
actually affecting your body. So there's so much information out there that you can hop from Dr. Google and go from one thing to the next and end up with all this information, but you're not actually getting the things that matter to you. So during that 6 months, we go through and say, okay, this is something that's been affecting you, and
Mhm.
this is relevant to you. This is a gem for you. So it's really like going back to school to figure out what is up with your body and what works for your body. That's the majority of
Okay.
what we do these days is getting all that information, simplifying it, and say this is what's relevant to you. This is what's causing your inflammation. We had one of the craziest weight gain stories we've ever had was a personal trainer who came to us, and she had 30 to 40 pounds of weight gain in
Mhm.
basically a pound a day, and
Wow.
she hadn't changed anything with her diet. It ended up being a dental problem with a reaction to amalgams that were put in her mouth, and so those got removed, and she ended up losing the weight. We've had people with
Wow.
dental infections in their root canals trigger a thyroid disorder that ended up causing their weight gain. So it can be tricky sometimes. So we discern through all that and see what is it that is causing your inflammation, your stressor, your hormone imbalance, and we start to course correct on all of that, and then basically give people the ammunition to be able to make good choices moving forward. I get the whole semaglutide movement. It's a desperation move. That's the weight loss
Mhm.
drugs, medications. And truthfully, I have three patients that we looked at the semaglutides. We were close to onboarding them just because of their effectiveness. We decided not to because of just how the impact on the digestive system. It goes contrary to a lot of our foundational
Okay.
educational practices. So we decided not to use it, but we're working with people who are using it, and I have three patients who have struggled to lose weight and stick with it with building good habits. And so I said, okay, go ahead and start it with this other doctor, but we're going to onboard our strategies
Mhm.
afterwards once you start getting some momentum. And we'll just watch for some of the side effects, which are basically shutting down of your gastric system and some of
Yeah.
the other problems that way. So, and sure
Okay.
enough, it's working for them where they started losing weight. Two out of the three, one of them, it still isn't working. And
Mm.
but now we're starting to run into the side effects, and those old habits still matter. And
Yeah.
what we found though is one of them did get enough gains and enough momentum to start creating some new habits, and the other one, she started digging into some of the other stuff, and we found a bacterial imbalance in her gut. And she had such a high amount of this certain type of bacteria, and when you read about this bacteria, it's a Klebsiella type bacteria. The number one cause of that bacteria when it's in excess in your gut is obesity, because of
Interesting.
how it affects an area of the brain called that deals with satiation or feeling full after eating. So when we took care of that bacteria, then she's doing better, and so we'll work on getting her off the semaglutides. And the big problem is most people are on the semaglutide. If they go off, if they have some of their old habits and the root cause wasn't addressed,
Yeah.
it just starts to come back.
This is a really critical conversation because I do think that there is going to be backlash and long-term issues coming out of this because like you said, I think that it can be a a redirect for some people to help them get to a point where they can recognize certain signals, but as you say, if somebody is put on these drugs and you're still not addressing the underlying issues,
Yeah,
lifestyle, habits, but then also, like you just explained, you found a bacteria that it would not have been detected by a general practitioner who would have just said, here, take this shot. And I think this is a really critical conversation. I'm glad we're talking about this because you guys, you're focused on long-term changes and solutions, and when you talk about how you're finding all of these little issues, I just some of the things like, you've mentioned a few things I've never even heard of because you're really looking under the hood.
yeah.
And I think if I had to say that there's one thing that sets you apart, that's it. That you're taking a deep dive, you're looking at, multiple data points in the patient, and you're treating them as a unique individual. And then you're identifying patterns that have been revealed, throughout the medical world.
Yeah. The other thing is, and I'm not sorry if I'm speaking over you, your screen froze me, but I just want to comment on that because we're looking at the root cause. We're turning over a lot of rocks to try and get to the root cause, and so we have to really dig deep. Number one, but our medical system is not set up to actually look for the root cause, and so getting to the root cause can be very, very challenging. It can take time. Sometimes it's weeks, sometimes it's months, and so it's very, very important to keep digging. And I was on stage here at the Reawaken tour speaking about this. There's a standard, a Medicare standard. It's standard 2251.3 that says care that seeks to promote health, prevent disease. Oh yeah, we're still live. I was just talking
Oh,
about.
okay. There we go.
I kept going because the screen kind of froze there on your
I
part,
was
but
talking.
uh, yeah, I think we both were. So I
Yeah.
apologize if we were talking over each other. But one of the things that I was just saying is that in trying to get to the root cause, you have to turn over a lot of stones, a lot of rocks to really get to what is the root cause. And one of the things I was speaking about here at the Reawaken Tour is how our health insurance and our health industry is not set up to go after the root cause right now, and that's part of the problem.
Okay.
There's actually a Medicare standard. It's Medicare standard 2251.3 that states care that seeks to prevent disease and improve the quality of life is not considered medically necessary. And that's part of the problem. They won't help you try to look for the root cause. And so that's because insurance just doesn't do that. And one of the doctors I heard say this very well, Dr. Mark Sherwood, I think we spoke about this maybe on one of the previous podcasts, but it's the same as car insurance and house insurance. They don't pay until damage is done. It's the same thing with health insurance. They don't pay until damage is done, until you have a disease process, till you have a diagnosis. To prevent disease, they're not going to pay for that. Same as your car insurance won't pay for you to detail the car, or the house insurance won't pay to paint the house, to cut the lawn, to take care of the property. That comes from us. So
Mhm.
uh, we have to budget for that right now. And in the future, we may have a slightly different healthcare system. I have some ideas. When General Flynn and Eric Trump, I was in the room. This might be interesting for some of your listeners too. I was in the room yesterday with Eric Trump and Alina Habba when the news broke about that judge yesterday, and it was just interesting to see their reactions to it. It's just awesome, actually, to be a part of that. But what they were speaking about is the same thing when it comes to our grassroots efforts of taking care of us and our health. And it's very important for us to understand what is the root cause. Right now, all this stuff that's happening in our country is being rooted out, and they're going after the root cause. And it's the same thing when it comes to our health of our bodies. There's a lot of things that's having some challenges. So,
That's a really good analogy, and I think I
yeah,
was gonna mention the insurance element as well, because people have come to rely on just what the insurance will cover. And what you said is so critical, that insurance doesn't kick in for health until after the patient is already sick, until after the damage is done. So the car
yeah,
is wrecked and then the insurance pays, and the body is wrecked and then the insurance pays. I wanted to get my dad on a CGM, the continuous glucose monitor that you wear, and the only way that the insurance would pay for it is if he is on insulin twice a day. And,
yeah,
he's not on insulin, and thankfully we've managed with lifestyle changes to keep him off of medication, but still, he's still considered, um, type 2, pre-diabetic, and I wanted to help him monitor and track the blood sugar. They won't pay for it unless he's really sick and already on insulin. So, it looks like you're frozen here on my screen, and I'm
okay,
hoping, let me just hold on a second. Yeah, you're still frozen. We can hear
okay.
you, but I think this is a good time to sign off. Tell people where they can find you. you do offer a free discovery call, and so that's important because anybody who's struggling with this, which is about 50% of our population,
Yeah.
probably needs to give you a call and to see if you guys you probably can help them get under the hood, look at the deep root cause issues so that they can resolve this problem and the peripheral problems once and for all. So it's Synapse Center for Health and Healing. I'm going to shoot the number out here. It's 651-209-9906, 651-209-9906. There's also a QR code up on the screen. Dr. Troy Spurill, thank you so much for being here today. We're gonna jump to the outro here, and we will have you back very soon. And we always appreciate your time. It's been a blessing to talk to you today. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of your time there.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you and your audience very much.
We will see you back here very soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Listen, your health is your best investment. We have a country to save, and we need people who are in the best shape of their lives, physically, mentally, spiritually. Why not connect with a team who cares about you on every single level from the inside out? Official Synapse is that team. OfficialSynapse.com. It's official, SYNAPSE.com. Tell them Mary Grace sent you, and they will treat you like family. If you're like most people, you really probably haven't thought about transferring your paper dollars into physical gold and silver. But I want to tell you a story. My friend Andrew Sorcini over at Beverly Hills Precious Metals, he recently went overseas and he wanted to buy a watch. He likes fine watches. He took 3 currencies with him. He took gold, he took Bitcoin, and he took American dollars. Now, there used to be a time when the American dollar was king. I remember that when I used to travel overseas. Everybody wanted dollars. The people that he was dealing with would not take his dollars because the dollar is so devalued around the world. They wanted the gold. So this is what I recommend to you. I want you to think about this. If you have cash in the bank, if you have an investment account that you have worked hard for years to accumulate, consider the value of converting that money into physical gold and silver. You're not buying something that's losing value. You're changing those worthless dollars into a tangible physical asset that will go up in value, which it has done historically. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to bh-pm.com. The first thing you're going to do is schedule that free consultation. Second thing, just think rationally about this, pray about it, go to the Lord, see what the best decision for you and your family is. I can't tell you that. I don't want to pressure you into that. What I do know is don't be scared, be prepared. And so the third thing you want to do is make a decision for you and your family. Make a decision, take action. bh-pm.com. Let them know Mary Grace sent you. When it comes to food, we really want to be aware of what is in the food that we're consuming. And that includes different types of technologies, jibber jabbers, technology that can alter your genetic makeup. And this is why we want to focus on American grown beef that isn't injected with things that you wouldn't put into your own body. We really don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. We saw 4 years ago what happened when the whole country shut down and people couldn't even go to the grocery store. We saw what happened when meat and other foods were rationed, and that could happen any day. We want you to be prepared. We want you to take action. And one of the best ways to do that is to secure food for yourself and your family. What better way than to go to griddownchowdown.com, use promo code Mary Grace, get a sustainable, reliable, shelf-stable source of high-quality American beef. All you do is go to griddownchowdown.com, tell them Mary Grace sent you, put your order in the basket and check out, and you're good to go. The other thing you can do is you can get a subscription. If you do a subscription, you're going to get this freeze-dried beef delivered to your door every month. And you're going to save a little bit while you do that. You're going to stockpile it, or you can just cook with it. Some people are just using it for their regular cooking. It's really up to you, but it's super convenient because it's freeze-dried and it's shelf stable for 12, 15 years or more. Go to griddownchowdown.com and use promo code Mary Grace. I just want to give a shout out to everybody who watches this show. Thank you for being a participant. Thank you for being a loyal audience member. I just want to remind you, if you like what you've seen, please share this and don't forget to subscribe, turn on your notifications, and also sign up for my email list so you never miss a show.